Battlefield 1 has a large variety of maps, most of them based on real-life World War I battle locations. These maps can range from absolutely incredible to completely terrible. In this deep dive series, we're going to have a look at some of Battlefield 1's worst and best maps and uncover the reasons why they work or why they don't. And in today's video, we're going to have a look at one of the absolute fan favorites in Battlefield 1. It's personally my favorite map and one of the crowning achievements as far as map design goes in Battlefield 1. I'm Dame. This is Dame Over, and welcome to Argonne Forest. Now, these deep dive videos are going to be a mini series, so I want to talk about a few format points we're going to go over. I've chosen to focus more on the technical aspects of the map design as to why it works, rather than going for more of the aesthetic things. But of course, those extra sprinkles on top that do make it very special will get a mention. And we're going to be looking at each of the points of interest and objective areas, focusing on three things in particular. Number one, layout and routing. Number two, sightlines and vantage points, and finally number three, viable ways to play or strongest classes in that particular area. Now, of course, Battlefield 1 would not be Battlefield 1 without its incredible atmosphere, and Argonne Forest is an excellent example of how to create that. A lot of this is down to the visual aspects and the sound design, in particular the dappled lighting that comes through the canopy in the trees above you in the forest, the huge levels of contrast you can see between the light and dark areas, the weather effects, most notably the rain, which helps us move into the sound design where you can hear your feet squelching through the mud. You can hear distant gunshots that are actually off the map, the occasional plane flying overhead, the echo of those gunshots and explosions throughout the forest, and in those particularly and very rare quiet moments, you can still hear some birds chirping that have somehow managed to escape the carnage. This all comes together to create a very gritty and very real feeling atmosphere, which makes you feel on edge a lot of the time. It creates a sense of tension constantly. It's very well done and definitely deserves a little tip of the hat. Now back to the nitty gritty of the video, and we're going to start from Objective A and work our way through the map. So first of all, let's have a look at Schwarzwald Trench. So facing away from the center of the map towards the American spawn, we have a few significant things to actually pay attention to. And you'll see this over and over again on Argonne Forest, and it's one of the reasons why it works. It follows a 3-lane principle, something that's very apparent in lots of first-person shooter games and third-person shooter, especially on a competitive and multiplayer level, that you will see in games like Gears of War, Halo, Call of Duty, Destiny, and that's just to name a few. Now, the 3-lane principle means that you're going to have 3 ways in and 3 ways out of each objective. On a smaller game that's 6v6 or 8v8, like Call of Duty, for instance, from your spawn area, you will have one route to your left, one straight down the middle, and one to the right. The one down the center generally being the busiest, and the left and right routes allowing you to try and get round behind players, but generally requiring you to be a lot more solid in your 1v1 fights because you're going to be way more isolated from the rest of your team. Now, you'll see this principle over and over again in Argonne Forest, as I'm going to point out, and that is one of the reasons why it works so well. There are at least, if not more, 3 ways in and 3 ways out of an objective. Now, Battlefield 1 has a much grander scale than those other games that I've just mentioned. 32 versus 32 on a much bigger map creates its own level of problems. Or, in the case of Argonne Forest and some of the other maps in Battlefield 1, the developers have taken what could be a problem and turned it into an excellent opportunity. So, facing away from the center of the map towards the American spawn, we have 3 very distinct lanes that you can enter the objective area in, with a cheeky 4th one around the side onto the train track. This means that a lot of the battle is going to flow through these main 3 areas, and if there's too much pressure in that main objective area, you can use the one on the train track to push all the way around the side and completely skip that objective, which stops your team from being trapped in the spawn area. There is a much longer route off to the side over in this direction, which I will go into in a little bit, but within and just around the objective area here, you'll see that the sightlines and vantage points I'm going to circle right here. These give you a significant advantage over people that are fighting in those trenches that are in the middle of the objective and help you keep control of the area. Now, it's very difficult to say what the strongest classes or the most viable ways to play are in this area because, just like loads of other parts of Argonne Forest, and thanks to the decent weapon balancing in Battlefield 1, there is no one best way to play, so it depends on the player. The agency you have because of this map design lets you choose if you're going to sit back and try and pick people off with a sniper or a medic rifle, for instance, or if you are going to try and be really really cheeky, sneak into those trenches and mow people down with an LMG or push people back with a shotgun. But as we noted before, those vantage points do give people the high ground on you if you do choose to push into the middle, so there is a definite risk-reward factor there. So facing away from that spawn area, if we look to the left-hand side, we have this unmarked area which has the pillbox and trench system, similar to how things are in Objective A, but again, it has a 3-lane system. There are at least 3 ways in and 3 ways out. And you'll notice as we move through the map that some of these lanes do have to double up simply because the areas have to link, which is where things like height of cover comes into play. And as you can see here, the vantage points I'm going to highlight, and these again allow you to have a lot of agency when you're choosing to play. Whether you're playing as assault, you can go from cover to cover to help close the distance. You can try and take some high ground if you're using a single shot rifle or a sniper rifle, but the average engagement distance on this map and in these areas in particular means that you can pretty much play however you want. So nipping back to the A objective, we're going to see how we can push in towards B, and it's going to be through this bunker system. We can of course take the easiest route all the way through past the beds and into B straight away, or there's the option of nipping around to the right hand side to go past the generators into the howitzer bunker itself. Now I mentioned there being at least 3 ways in and 3 ways out, but again this one has 4, so you can bypass all of that and push down the train tracks over here to be able to push in and hold the high ground above the old howitzers, or we can go all the way around the left hand side past that pillbox to push into B from the forested area. Now of course in the small corridors and low ceilings of the bunkers, close quarters weaponry is going to reign supreme, with explosives and gadgets flying all over the place. But there of course are many viable options on each of the classes, and even if you are with a scout rifle that feels completely useless, it's close quarters enough that you can always switch to your sidearm and still make yourself very effective. Now let's have a little overview of B itself. So we've seen the 3 ways in, let's have a look at the 3 ways out. And we'll also have a look at those vantage points on B itself. Again, still very close quarters as things were in the bunker. Now to get out away from B, you can of course go past the old howitzers near the train tracks and push towards the bridge, which is one of the longest sightlines you'll see on Argonne Forest. But if you want to try and get around the side and be a little bit more sneaky, you can take one of my favorite routes past this little hut out here on the left-hand side of the map. Now again, similar to that pillbox that was near A, this little area itself still has loads of routes in and out, which again I'm going to highlight here. Now you might be thinking, why are all these routes so much better than having an open space? Well, it's because you're not going to be shot from any angle at any time. You can move from cover to cover, knowing that there is a limited area in which you can be attacked from. The play zone itself is limited by these boundaries, so if you do manage to flank around the edge, you only have to watch one direction, rather than feeling like you're going to be shot from all angles at all times. One of the failings of the newer Battlefield games is that there are too many open fields with very little hard cover, which unfortunately translates to you being punished for moving as you're trying to gain some sort of ground for your team within the game. The thing about Argonne Forest which makes it so exciting is the close quarters combat that you'll come into at any one time. These different lanes and different opportunities for other players to take mean you have to keep thinking about what the enemy team might do and keep yourself prepared for it. There is a certain level of predictability about it, but it doesn't feel completely random. So map knowledge does work in your favor, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee results. So let's have a little look at Objective C, and we're going to have a little snapshot of small parts of it. So looking down from the bridge to the areas that go underneath, we have 3 routes in and out, as I will highlight here. Now this is on the left side of the bridge as you're attacking from B to C, and on the right hand side of the bridge, again looking at the lowest portion, we have 3 routes in and out. Again, some of those cross over. Now looking from B to C, we have the 3 routes that you can push towards C. The 3 routes are here, with a couple of cheeky options for you to traverse the map and find some interesting ways to move around. And the vantage points over this whole area I'm going to highlight here. So these are the ones over from the B side. And if you're looking from nearer the D flag towards C, here are your vantage points. And this vantage point in particular on the right hand side of the map, as we've been looking at it, is where a lot of the fighting is going to take place. It grants you a lot of control over this area because of the high ground, the cover, and the ways to flank around. And as you can see from the highlighted areas here, there are a lot more than 3 ways in and 3 ways out. That is because this part of the map has so much of the traffic going through it. To avoid things coming to a standstill, there need to be options for players to move around easily. So creating this high ground that can't shoot at the low ground means that players can try and sneak around the back. Being able to be shot from over near the other objectives means that it's very difficult to post up there with a sniper rifle or a light machine gun without getting taken out. And again, those sightlines and vantage points mean that so many of the different classes are very, very strong here. All options are viable, none of them are overpowered. It's incredibly well designed for an area that is so busy with so many players for the majority of the game. So if we post our camera just above the C flag in the middle of the bridge, I'm going to show you the routes in and out of there. So here we are. We're going to highlight them on this side coming off the bridge itself. And looking over to the right, here are your other options to push through towards D. Now the D flag, aka Kaiser's Ridge, is one of my favourite parts of Argonne Forest. It's got a lot of clever design features that you might not even notice. So first of all, let's have a look at our 3 criteria: layout and routing. Here are the ways in and out. Here are the sightlines and the vantage points. And the viable ways to play, again, it is so varied in this particular area. The trench network gives you plenty of cover if you have a close quarters weapon or you're trying to push in aggressively. If you want to pick people off, you can sit back and take those longer sight lines to try and hit people that are hiding in the trenches or vice versa. But what really gets me about this particular area is that, of course, we have the pillboxes, very important features and very useful, and the hard and soft cover leading up to them mean that the defenders can't just rain down fire with impunity. There is a risk-reward factor that you have to take into consideration. To be able to shoot people charging up the hill towards you, you have to get yourself out of cover. This minute detail creates a very interesting dilemma for the player. You have to give up being completely covered to try and take someone out as they're charging towards you, or hope that you can get your shot off first. Taking into consideration the height of a player model is just an incredible detail and extremely well done. This level of detail is why Argonne Forest and many of the other Battlefield 1 maps are held in such high regard by the player base. Player agency and player experience are the very forefront of this kind of map design. So I've shown you the main routes in and out of D, but let's have a look at the train tracks yet again. There is a route that takes you all the way down the train track so you can nip around the side, that goes to this other smaller shell storage area. If you've played Domination on Battlefield 1 on Argonne Forest, you'll know that this is one of the main capture points. And again, it follows that 3-lane principle, and those routes are here. Now, it's worth pointing out at this point, because we haven't really touched on it that much, with every objective area, there is at least one way that you can just completely skip past it. This helps you not get trapped in that objective area, not get trapped in spawn, and allows you to have enough agency and enough forethought where if your team is stuck in one particular place and you want to try and help relieve the pressure, all you've got to do is take that 4th route and get to another objective so they try to deal with you. And it's this kind of decision through the design of the map that allows you to feel like you're actually making a real difference to the game. And finally, we are on to the Abbey Ruin. We can see our entrances into this area. We have 4 specific entrances to be able to get ourselves from D onto E. But just like at the A objective, to come out of the spawn point, for the German team in this case, you can see that there are 4 different ways to get yourself onto the map. And again, the extra option to get yourself around the fighting if it does get stuck in that area, down the train tracks, just over here. Now, the Abbey Ruins itself is a very interesting one, and similarly to the D point, there are loads of different ways that you can use the cover and create yourself a little height advantage over the enemies that are pushing in. Loads of hard cover, loads of soft cover to move yourself around and through, but most interestingly, there is an underground cellar area which you can use to hold yourself up in. Of course, grenade spam and gadget spam is rife in this area, but very cleverly the walls have been designed so that it's quite difficult to bounce your grenade around a corner without your enemy being able to move out of its effective range. So this kind of design, again, a minute detail that makes a very real impact within the game itself, means that you have to make a very coordinated effort to be able to push in and take that area completely with your team. And of course, we have another underground bunker with some shells stored in it as well. These environmental hazards, always fun, but generally players now are too wise to it and they'll blow them up regardless right at the beginning of the game so they don't get caught short. So that's a detailed look, particularly taking into account the 3-lane idea but as we've looked at, you might feel like you're being forced into these areas and it might not feel like you have much of a choice in the matter. Within those objective areas and the points of interest, you still have so much choice with how you're going to play, what route you're going to take, and how you're going to affect the game. You can choose almost any weapon and make it work, as long as you try and choose your playstyle correctly. All of this comes down to the map design. Argonne Forest is designed so well that you always feel like you have choices and decisions to make that can really affect the outcome of the game. In my opinion, it's an all-round masterstroke as far as map design goes. And what you'll notice with the other Battlefield maps that you might not like, or players in general don't like, that 3-lane idea is either completely missing or a very important aspect of it is completely missing. So next time you jump on for a few rounds of Conquest, keep that in the back of your mind and see if you notice it. If you think there are any details within Argonne Forest that I missed, make sure you let me know what they are in the comments. If you have favourite maps within Battlefield 1 that you would like me to have a deep dive look at, then let me know that as well. And if you're new around here, it'd be great if you could subscribe, and also don't forget to hit that like button. It genuinely helps the algorithm and helps me out as well. I will catch you in the next one. That's game over. Peace.